All right. Hello, everybody. Steve Prziborowski here. Welcome to episode 4 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. Episode 4 is just going to cover the basic question of what does a firefighter actually do? And you may look at it and go, well, firefighter, fight fire. Well, as we've discussed on the first 3 episodes, as much as it'd be nice to say a firefighter fights fire every day and save lives and all those other exciting, glamorous things that many of us got into this line of work for, whether we're volunteer, career, or whatever, firefighters do a number of different things. So without further ado, let's get started. As I like to start off with, I'm a resource for everybody. Assuming that you want to become a firefighter, regardless of what part of the country you're in, regardless of what type of department you want to work for, volunteer, career, it doesn't matter. I'm a resource for everybody. And then once you're on the job, I'm a resource as well too. I really have a passion for helping people get hired, helping people stay hired, helping people get promoted, and then obviously stay promoted, and then hopefully ultimately be the best they can be regardless of the position they find themselves at throughout their entire career. So that's hopefully my passion that I'm sharing with each and every one of you throughout all these episodes that are on my YouTube channel. So my promotional preparation officer development website, code3firetraining.com, has a lot of great leadership related stuff, officer development stuff, promotional preparation stuff, hours and hours of information for you to help be the best you can be, regardless of the rank that you ever want to get to in the fire service. And then obviously, for those that want to become a firefighter, I run the Chabot College Fire Technology website, chabotfire.com. Again, a free stuff link with lots of free information to help you, lots of articles that I've written that I've had published by all the major fire magazines, as well as a lot of other resources that can keep you busy for hours and days. So these websites, these webinars that I'm doing, or vlogs, or whatever you're calling them, are based on 2 of the books that I've had published. I've had 3 books published, but the 2 future firefighter preparation books are number 1, the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, as well as the second one, Reach for the Firefighter Badge, both of which are available off both my websites in either hard copy or soft copy digital format. But again, they complement each other, and they're there to be a resource for each and one of you to become a firefighter. So, simple question. What does a firefighter do? I bet you if you ask that of a lot of people, you're going to get a variety of different answers. Now, let's just say you walk down the street, put a microphone in someone's face and say, hey, what do you think a firefighter does? You're going to get a lot of different answers. To the average person, obviously, I bet you're going to hear answers such as, well, hey, fight fire and save lives, right? Okay, well, by now, if you've watched the first 3 episodes, or you've actually had a chance to do some research, you realize that most firefighters don't actually fight fire that much. And obviously, it's rare in many communities that there's actually fires going on. Most firefighters do a lot of other things that we'll talk about. Saving lives is also very rare as well, too. Very few firefighters ever get to grab someone from the clutches of death and save their life. I mean, don't get me wrong, it happens, and it's a very rewarding feeling when it does happen, but we probably do more indirect life saving through fire prevention, public education, through other public contacts that we do, CPR training and other things. But to the average person, they probably think that we fight fire and save lives. Why? Because our name is the fire department, and we're titled firefighters. So some would say that's false advertising, but it's the titles that we have in most departments. Some people think that, hey, we'll call 911 to have you guys come out and get the cat from the tree. And I know there's a joke that you've probably heard out there. You never see a cat skeleton in a tree, but you know what? To some, and I say that sarcastically, but some people think in a sarcastic manner that that's all we do. You know, all we do is get cats from trees. Well, some fire departments don't go on those types of calls, with the logic being that you never see cat skeletons in trees, and the cat will come down at some point. You know, we don't hear those types of calls. I was a brand new captain back in 2001, literally my first day as a captain. We weren't even halfway through the shift. We started at 8 o'clock in the morning, right after dinner, about 7 p.m. I remember my firefighter, someone rang the doorbell, and the firefighter answers the door, and he comes running in. He goes, that's ridiculous. And I go, who is at the door? He goes, some lady's saying that there's a cat stuck in the tree across the street. He goes, we don't do that type of stuff. And he was actually, just, pretty, I guess, angry that the person annoyingly knocked on the door of the firehouse trying to help them out. And I go, well, what did you tell her? He goes, I told her we don't do that type of stuff. And I'm like, hey, our patch says courtesy and service. I go, I've never seen a cat in the tree. And I looked at the other firefighter. I go, perfect. Grab the reserve truck. Now, we normally staffed an engine at the station, but we also had a reserve truck company. And I told the firefighter, I go, hey, why don't you grab the reserve truck? We're going to make this into a drill for the night. And he's like, what? And he's like, okay, Steve. Well, so I walked downstairs. I told the other firefighter that answered the door, and I go, hey, grab your turnout gear, your full PPE. Let's go walk across the street, see what's going on. He was still a little annoyed with me because I guess I was interrupting his TV time, or because we don't do those types of things, Steve. That's only in the movies. I go, I've never seen a cat in the tree. So we walk out there, we assess the situation. If anything, I use it as a public relations opportunity to do the right thing. Now, my one firefighter, what happens, of course, trying to make every excuse to get out of it. Well, what happens if we get a medical call, or what happens if we get called to a fire while we're out here? Well, then you know what? We'll leave the reserve truck in place. We'll tell the people nicely that, hey, we've got a real life-threatening emergency that we need to respond to. We'll be back when we're done. I know there's valuables in the truck, don't get me wrong, but it's like, let's try to at least assess the situation, see if we can maybe make it better for the person. Again, courtesy and service, let's do the right thing. The customers are paying for us to be there. You know what? Let's give it a shot. Well, anyway, the rookie firefighter that we had, it was a great training drill. So the senior firefighter that didn't like the fact that we were going out there, the senior firefighter took the time to raise the aerial ladder up to the tree, had the junior firefighter put his full gear on because, number one, a scared, anxious cat in a tree, I don't know what that's going to happen. But again, I've never seen a cat in a tree in person, so I wish I would have videotaped this. And I'm joking, but I'm also being serious. And the reason I'm saying being serious is because, you know what? Someone called us for service. We may not be able to solve every problem as 911 service providers, but you know what? Let's at least try to make their day better. So we walk out there, we raise the aerial ladder. I'm talking to the cat owner and I'm going, well, ma'am, typically, we don't typically do this, but we're out here. It'll be a good training exercise. We may have to leave if we get a more serious call. And they were totally understanding of it. But you know what? At the end of the day, the firefighter got up to the top of the tree. The cat was actually nice enough to be able to jump into our firefighter's arms without scratching the heck out of him, thank God, because we didn't want to add more insult to injury there. But anyway, the cat came down, we gave it to the lady, made her day, and she was very happy. Tax-paying citizen that probably loves the fire department, I'm hoping, to this day. Does it always work out that cleanly with cats? No, sometimes they go up higher. Sometimes they jump on the responder and scratch the crap out of them. Sometimes they fall, jump, bad things happen at that point, then we're blamed for that. But again, back to the comment, the average person thinks we get cats from trees. You know what? Hey, if we can make someone's day better and do it safely, effectively, I'm all for it. Plus, it was a good training exercise. It was a night drill, we called it. So get a couple boxes checked on the training exercise. To the average person, well, you guys just sit around the firehouse, and days past, it was you sit around, play checkers. Now, if you ask what checkers are, or chess of some people, they may go, what? That was the old school. You guys sit around the firehouse and play checkers, or you sit in front of the fire engine and just sort of watch the public go by and just, catcall, catcall individuals and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, don't get me wrong, there is downtime. We typically work 12 hours, 24, maybe 48 or 72 hours, but most firefighters don't always sit around the firehouse just waiting for the bell to go off. It does happen, but to the average person, that's what they think we are. To the average person, we just drive Big Red around, meaning the big red truck, BRT, big red truck for short. And when I'm saying these items, number 2, 3, and 4, cats sitting around the firehouse and driving Big Red, are usually come across in a sarcastic way. Usually to people, it's like, oh, you just drive the truck around wasting gas, or what are you doing parking in front of the supermarket, taking up the valuable real estate, meaning the fire department, the emergency vehicle red zone, that's just a waste of my taxpayer dollars, and then, it's a challenging part because the average person, again, doesn't realize that we're typically there for 24 or more hours, that we have to eat usually, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We got to go shopping typically. So to the average person, we're just a big waste of taxpayer funding, and before you get pissed or angry at the customers, you can't blame them, because to the average person, they don't know our jobs. If they've never done a ride along, they've never stopped by a firehouse, they don't know any firefighters, you can't blame them. Just like if you are trying to blame them, turn the tables around. I mean, think about your friends and family members that do different types of jobs. You may think you know everything about what their job entails, but like to some people, oh, they're a professional athlete, they're a baseball player, the game's 3 hours a day. All they do is sit around before that, and they can get to the ballpark, 10 minutes before the game starts. Then they're gone after the game is over. Well, if anyone's played professional sports or any type of sports, you realize it isn't like that. Yeah, the game may be from 7 p.m. to sometimes 10 p.m., sometimes midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. because extra innings. Sometimes games called by rain or called for rain at 8:05 or 7:05. But they're also there a couple hours earlier, if not more than a couple hours earlier, because they have to take batting practice, they have to get stretched, they have to do whatever workouts or preparation to get them ready to go, loosen their arm up, loosen their body out. And then, of course, all the other things that go to keep them in tip-top shape to be an athlete. But again, the average person doesn't realize that. So I say this, number one, to recognize that someone that comes at us, which they will come at you, because when you are a firefighter, and especially when you're at a firehouse, you're driving the big red truck around, or you're out in the public's eye at the supermarket or somewhere else, you're going to get these sometimes dumb questions, but don't take them as dumb. Take them as a public relations opportunity to maybe educate somebody. I mean, chances are when you get that disgruntled person at the supermarket that's looking at you and eyeing you up and makes that snarky comment of, God, what a waste of my taxpayer dollars. You guys are buying steaks, lobster, this is BS. And then even if you do take the time to put a smile on your face and walk up, well, hello sir, hello ma'am, my name's Steve, I'm a captain with the fire department here. If you have a few seconds, I'd like to explain a few things, if that's okay, just to share how our typical day goes about. And sometimes they may want to gauge. Some people are just miserable, they don't want to engage. Maybe someone wants to engage and say, well, okay, you got a minute my time, tell me what your job is. Well, you may not realize that we work for 24 hours at a time. We have to go shopping once a day to be able to grab our meals. There's 3 of us, 6 of us, 10 of us at the firehouse. Yeah, we seem to be eating very well today, but we split that. Yes, it's your taxpayer dollars that are paying for us to be there. I totally get that. But it's my choice and their choice to spend our money as we feel fit. Obviously that don't come across in a sarcastic manner, but yeah, this meal may be looking expensive, but we're all paying for it. We're all splitting it. Just like if we had macaroni and cheese today and top ramen noodles, that would be a lot cheaper. Again, that's us paying for it. So sometimes things like that may change their opinion. Sometimes they're just going to be miserable and that's their attitude, and you're probably not going to change them, but at least you got to have a smile on your face, and you can't get angry about this stuff, because again, most people never know, and or even if they know, they're never going to want to believe you or see your side of the story, but it's okay. But what does a firefighter do? Those I think are a lot of the perception items. Well, let's look at the stats here. As I look at, my department's on the website, you look at our run statistics. Now, here's the reality. You look at the different types of calls. Now, if you want to become a firefighter, I encourage you to go to different fire departments' websites, because let's say you're testing for the city of Cleveland or the city of Cincinnati or Atlanta or whatever, insert city name here. Part of preparing to become a firefighter is going to the city fire department's website, the city website, looking at the budget, looking at all the fire department statistics, learning the names and faces of key people, learning the statistics of how many people are on duty, number of firehouses, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you look at the incident types, this is going to sort of paint a picture, and these are really no different than most other departments. So you look in my department, we're 58.67% medical calls. And this is just for a snapshot in time. This is obviously not for the full year. This is just a little snapshot in time here. If you look at, okay, here's a snapshot that if you looked at our year statistics or a 10-year statistics, a 5-year statistics of our department, any department, it's all pretty much the same. Most of our calls are emergency medical service calls. That's the reality. You look at our stats, 22% are service calls. Those are usually not code 3 life-threatening emergencies. Those are code 2, typically no lights, no siren, help put someone back into bed. It's not uncommon to have people call and say, hey, you know what? my husband, my partner, my wife, my whoever, my father, my grandfather, grandmother fell out of bed and I'm not strong enough to help put them back. There's no medical emergency. We don't need an ambulance, but we just need some strong hands to help out. Now, I know not every department does that, but we do that like a lot of departments do. And that's a good chunk of our calls. And that's just one example of a service call. Or let's say at 3 a.m. that, an elderly individual obviously has a bad situation they can't control. An elderly person lives by themselves. Maybe their water heater goes on the fritz, and the next thing you know, their water heater is flooding their kitchen area. Well, they may not remember in that time of stress how to turn off the water heater. Next thing you know, they just see water gushing out of that water heater. It's damaging their floors. I mean, if they call the police department, they may or may not show up to begin with, but here's the thing. People call 911 because they're out of options usually. They may not be able to afford a plumber. They may not know who to call as, say, a plumber in that situation. So guess what? You call 911 and they know someone's going to typically show up in most communities. So, we jump on the rig, no lights, no siren, get out there, see what we can do to make the situation better or at least stabilize the situation. If we can at least maybe shut the water down, that's great. Maybe we can clean up, mop up all the water that's come out of that. Maybe we can try to prevent any damage, do some salvage work. Maybe we can suggest, hey, ma'am, do you have a plumber that you normally deal with, or electrician or contractor, whoever the situation calls for? Maybe we can help provide some guidance. Now, we're not here to say, well, go call Joe the plumber. He's a great guy. He'll give you a great discount. Tell him Steve sent you. We're not here to do things like that because that's potential conflict of interest. Usually we tell people, hey, take a look, maybe for some people that don't have internet access, if they can find a phone book, the old school method was, hey, go take a look at the yellow pages and look through. There's probably a lot of licensed contractors that can assist you. Or, hey, you know what? Go Google plumber. You live in San Jose, plumbers in San Jose, and maybe ask some friends, reach out to neighbors, reach out to family members, look on Nextdoor. But again, our job is to maybe hopefully stop the damage and maybe help guide them in the right direction for the future. And maybe we can even fix the the water heater. Now, granted, we're probably not going to be there to help them install the new water heater. But again, if we can do some customer service, that's what a lot of our service calls are. They're just sort of those catch-alls that don't fit anywhere else and usually not life-threatening emergencies. Fire alarms, it's not uncommon to have ringing fire alarms. Most commercial occupancies buildings have a fire alarm. In some communities, fire alarms are also required in houses, not every community, but it's not uncommon for us to go out to fire alarms. And probably last time I did the statistics on fire alarms, I think 99 point something were false alarms. Well, that doesn't mean that we don't respond because there's always a chance there could be something significant. But when we ran the statistics on fire alarms over like a 5-year period, 99% plus were false. And over a 5-year period of fire alarms, there was only like about 30 actual fires. And of those actual fires, some of them were put out by the sprinkler system, or the others were put out by somebody on scene with a fire extinguisher or some other mechanism to suppress the fire. Very few of those fire alarm calls required actually fire department intervention. Maybe some salvage work, maybe a little bit of cleanup after an extinguisher went off or a sprinkler went off. But again, if nothing else, we still respond out there just to help maybe educate the individual and help them get back to normal. Help them, hey, well, this is what you got to do to get your sprinkler system or your fire alarm back in service. We also have the other, and I always love other calls because it's like, what is other? I get the other concept because other doesn't fit within the other categories, but from a statistical standpoint, it can be challenging when you're trying to educate people. What's other? Well, just anything that doesn't fit into the others. Okay. So, others count for a little bit there. Hazardous conditions are out there. Maybe, again, a gas leak could be considered a hazardous condition. Fires, you look at fires, 3% of our calls are fires. Actual fires, by the time the crews get on scene, are about 1%. So fires, 3% of our calls are fires. It's not a lot, but we're the fire department. We're called firefighters. Yeah, I get that. But if you look at most statistics, you look at most departments, their fire calls are usually not any more than say 10%. Most departments nationwide, emergency medical calls make up 58% to 60 to 70 to maybe even 80%. Fires usually making up probably 10% or less. If you see a department that says on their statistics, 40% of our calls are fires, well, or higher than 40%, It means they may not run medical calls, which there's a few departments that don't run medical calls. I get that. That's fine. Or it means somehow the statistics are skewed, because even some of the bigger cities that do fight a lot of fire in certain areas, they still usually run a lot of EMS calls and a lot of other calls as well too, not just fires. But it just, the trends are showing nationwide that fires are on the decline. I mean, that's a good thing. And I know that sometimes sucks for people getting into the job because I want to be a fight fire, save lives and fight fire. Yeah, but fires, when they occur, are at someone else's detriment. So if we truly care about others, because again, hopefully you're getting into this line of work, whether you're volunteer or career or whatever, you're getting into it for the right reasons, to help people, and to be able to serve your community. Well, it's not serving the community when bad things are happening. So we don't want to wish bad things towards our community. It's not good karma, and it's not the right thing to do either. So, but when bad things do happen, we're there to hopefully mitigate them, at least stabilize them, do what we have to help the individuals that are requesting our service, that are ultimately paying for our service through their taxes. So there's a snapshot. And again, every department's different, but there's just a snapshot for like a month's period of time for call volume. But again, you look at a year statistics for most departments, you'll see the same. What else does a firefighter do? Let's take a look at some other things. We also do a lot of other things besides calls, because in many communities, you do the statistics. It's not uncommon for most fire engines around the country to run a couple calls a day. Very few departments are running 10 calls a day out of each fire station or firehouse. I don't know what the average is, but I mean, the busiest companies, the busiest engines, trucks, ambulances, or medic units or rescue units, they're doing 10 plus calls a day. And you can Google fire department run statistics. Firehouse magazine every year does the annual run statistics where they rank the most busiest companies around the country. And you'll see sometimes upwards of 10,000 calls a year, which would probably average 20 to 30 calls a day. Well, that's probably the exception to the rule. Most departments are probably running single digits out of each firehouse. It's not uncommon to have most firehouses run a couple calls a day. There may be firehouses around the country, not maybe, there is firehouses around the country that run zero, goose egg, zilch, nothing for the day. It's not uncommon. Just like there's companies that are running 10 calls a day, but most firefighters, it's not uncommon to run maybe a couple calls a day, and that's it. So what do we do in our spare time when we're not running calls? I know some people sit around the firehouse, I get that, but before we even go on calls, we have to make sure our apparatus are maintained. So whether you're volunteer or career, you still got to usually maintain the apparatus. Yes, there's usually mechanics that do the specialized stuff, but each driver or engineer of that fire engine or fire truck or rescue vehicle or whatever it is needs to do their daily Department of Motor Vehicles DMV pre-trip inspection. Make sure there's water in the tank, check out the code 3 lights, make sure the siren works, make sure the doors are functioning, make sure the tools and apparatus, the tools and equipment are all functioning. Yeah, those are all things we do usually at the start of every shift. Firehouse, we're living there typically. If we're a career department, we're living there 24 hours at a time. If you're a volunteer fire department, then maybe the firehouse is there just to house the apparatus. So in volunteer departments, it's not uncommon that maybe nobody lives there 24/7, and then just people drive their personal vehicles to the firehouse when the bells go off, and then they all jump on the fire engine or fire truck or rescue vehicle, and then they go to the call. That's one way a volunteer department works. Some volunteer departments actually have sleeper programs where they have people there maybe at night or during the day or whatever system they have. But again, a facility, a firehouse, for example, still needs to be maintained. This is shocking to some people, but every now and then someone will get hired at a fire department across the country, and after they check the rig, usually the rig is the first thing we check out every day when we start our shift, is check your rig out, put your gear on the rig, make sure everything's ready to go. Like if you're the EMT or the paramedic and you're handling patient care for the day, you better make sure your EMS gear is ready to go. Well, usually after that is done, the rig's ready to go. One of the next things to do is usually clean the firehouse. And it is amazing sometimes when occasionally a new firefighter will go, "What do you mean I got to clean the toilet, Captain?" And then the captain goes, "Didn't they teach you that in the recruit academy? Didn't you learn that?" "Well, no, they didn't teach us that in the recruit academy." Well, you're cleaning the toilet, kid." "What do you mean? I'm the firefighter." "Right. Well, the captain and the lieutenant's the company officer. They're the boss. They're not going to be usually doing toilets." I mean, unless they need to split the workload up, I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But usually the firefighter is the one that's going to be doing the basic stuff, cleaning the toilets, cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the kitchen, doing whatever else. Just like the engineer of the apparatus is going to be responsible for the apparatus, maybe the firefighter is responsible for cleaning the station. So please don't be that one person that gets on the job and then has to look their boss, their captain, their supervisor in the eyes and say, I've never cleaned a toilet before. And then have to have the captain go, you mean you lived at home? You've never lived on your own? No. Or you've lived at home your whole life and your parents, your guardians, whoever never made you clean a toilet? Well, no. Shame on them. I'm being sarcastic, but it happened. Please don't be that person. So obviously we got to keep our rigs up to date, our facilities up to date. We may have to do fire prevention inspections. Most departments have dedicated fire inspectors that work Monday through Friday to inspect commercial occupancies, not residential occupancies, but commercial occupancies. Well, it's not uncommon that most jurisdictions, not just in addition to 40-hour people working Monday through Friday, sometimes the firefighters have to do this job too. And I know sometimes firefighters go, I don't want to do inspections. I'm here to run calls. Well, guess what? There's a benefit to doing fire prevention inspections. Number one, it gets yourself inside your commercial occupancies during the daytime when there's light and when they're not on fire. Think about that. The first time I go into a building, a commercial building especially, that's on fire, say at 2 in the morning, I don't want that 2 in the morning to be the first time I'm going into that building. When there's smoke banked down to the floor and I'm on my hands and knees. I want to have seen that layout of the building during normal hours to see what the hazards are when there's no smoke in there. I know it's impossible to get inside every building within our areas, but we got to do that. And again, part of fire prevention inspections is pre-fire planning. Pre-fire, meaning before the fire occurs, we get ourselves into our buildings to look at the lay of the land, try to maybe put together some strategy and tactics that, hey, if we had a fire over there, maybe we'd enter this way. Or if we had a fire up there, maybe we would attack the fire this way. So pre-fire planning is a great benefit of fire prevention inspections, and obviously the code enforcement angle. I know as firefighters, we don't want to be the code enforcement folks, but you know what? Fire prevention and codes specifically are there to help save people, protect people. Number one, protect the individuals that work there, protect the property owners or the business owners or the property managers, whoever leases the property as well, but ultimately they're to protect the civilians that are shopping. Now, when you go into any business in your community or wherever, I would think the average person hopes and expects that business to be safe, to be free of any hazards. I mean, or maybe they don't care, but again, we're there to help those that may not be thinking of these things or are thinking of these things. We're there to do the right thing. We're not there to shut a business down. We're there to make the business safe. And we're there to also educate the business owner and the employees. Because again, when a business closes down because of a fire, many of them don't reopen. Look at the challenges we're dealing with right now with the coronavirus pandemic, which is, as I'm talking to you right now, has been going on for about, God, I think 3+ months. Many businesses have had to shut down around the country because of the shelter-in-place orders. Some of those, if not a lot of those, will probably never reopen, and that wasn't even because of a fire. So again, we do these things to hopefully help the community. We also may be called to do public education events. When I say public education events, it may be teaching CPR, it may be staffing a fire safety booth at a high school, it may be doing career preparation talks. It's not uncommon for schools to call firefighters to come on down and, hey, talk about a day in the life of the firefighter. So you're there to inspire, motivate, encourage future firefighters to step up at some point. And you may be teaching fire extinguisher safety, general fire safety, how to, plan exit drills in the home, all those other types of things. And I know sometimes they're not the most sexiest or most exciting things for a firefighter to do, but they're so critically important. And more importantly, besides being important, usually the public enjoys seeing us there, especially if we got a smile on our face. It's, most of the public usually loves seeing us at these types of events, especially if we can help make their day better in some capacity. It's nice to have that connection with the community. Mention a little bit teaching classes. We may be teaching CPR classes, fire extinguisher safety, and you may go, wait a second, I'm not a school teacher. I've never been trained as a teacher or a speaker or in instructional techniques. Well, guess what? This is how it goes. As a firefighter, your first day on the job, it could be 8 o'clock you start. Hey, you get to the firehouse, you bring your donuts, your bagels, whatever it is, you bring in your first day, your coffee. Your captain tells you, hey, by the way, you're riding right there on the fire engine. Make sure you get your gear settled in, check out your SCBA, check out your tools and equipment. And as soon as you're done with that, I need you to clean the bathroom over there and the bathroom over there. And then as soon as you're done with that, probably around 9 o'clock, 9:15, we'll meet in the kitchen to have a little breakfast, and we'll talk about the day's agenda, what's going on, and we'll talk about basically some expectations about what happens if we get a fire call. I expect you to do this. If we get an EMS call, you're the patient person. And besides teaching expectations, we'll just go over the plan of the day and see if you have any needs. And then, of course, now it's 9:30, 9:45. You're settled into breakfast. The captain's going over expectations, and he goes, okay, for the plan for the day. Normally, we'd go hit the store about 10 o'clock, but you know what? This morning at 10:30, we have a group of 40 school kids coming by. 40, I don't know, fourth graders are hitting the station at 10:30 this morning, and you're like eating your Cheerios for your breakfast, and then you're going, okay, cool, that's cool, that's bitching. And the captain goes, hey, by the way, the school kid tour, you got the tour, it's yours. And you're like choking on your Cheerios, spitting them out of your nose and your mouth. What was that, Captain? I'm 23 years old and I don't have any kids, and I'm an only child, and I don't really have any nephews or nieces or anything else. What did you say? I'm doing the school tour? Yeah, you're doing the tour. Well, I was never trained in that. Well, many departments during the Recruit Academy train you how to do these types of things. If you go through a Firefighter 1 Academy at a college, or you get your 2-year degree in fire technology, like I really think is important, even though it's not required, you learn a lot of these things. Most departments, when they hire you, they also put you through a Recruit Academy. A lot of good departments also prepare you to do these things before you get to the firehouse so you don't look like a goof. Well, it's not uncommon. Sometimes departments don't. So looking your captain in the eye and say, well, I'm not comfortable doing that, Cap. The captain's going to say, I don't care if you're comfortable or not, kid. You're on your probationary period, which is usually 6 months to 3 years. Probationary period, meaning they can fire you for any reason at all. And then you're like, well, what do you mean? The captain goes, okay, I've been on the job 30 years. The engineer's been on the job 35 years. We've done more school tours than we care to mention. We can do these in our sleep. It's yours, kid. There's the binder over there. There's a checklist in there. Figure it out. When the kid's knocking 38 minutes, it's yours. We'll be watching back. And that's going to be on your daily evaluation. And you're like, oh, shit. And you're praying for the bell to go off. Well, this is what happens. You got to be comfortable in front of groups of people. You got to be comfortable, especially in front of kids and the public, because again, you make that a negative interaction for whatever reason, this is all they know for the rest of their life. You want to make that positive public interaction with the public. So you're going to get curveballs thrown at you, just like I got the phone thrown at me right now as a curveball, but hey, that's life. I'm not going to redo this. But you've got to be prepared to handle pretty much anything, especially on your first day as a firefighter. You can't say, hey, I'm brand new. I haven't been taught that. That don't fly with your captain. You've got to be able to roll with the punches. And again, that's why I stressed in the first couple of episodes of these webinars or these vlogs, whatever you call them, that you're not required to usually have a 2-year degree in fire technology to become a firefighter. But you know what? It definitely sure as heck helps you be prepared, because as I mentioned, and I'll try to mention every episode, prepare for the position, not just for the test. So if you prepared for the position by maybe educating yourself, getting some training, you'll hopefully fill those gaps that the department can't train you on, because we can't train you on everything. As much as I'd love to train every firefighter on everything, there's no way we can do that. Firefighters are also called upon to do hydrant maintenance, because you think about it, hydrants are in most communities, not every community, but most metropolitan areas, suburban areas, fire hydrants are usually on every corner. Well, in most areas, the water company, which may be part of the city, but usually water companies are private or public, but they're usually not part of the fire department. Yeah, I know a lot of people say, well, the fire hydrants are owned by the water company. Like in our area, San Jose Water Company owns most of the hydrants. Well, that's true, but Think about who the primary user of the hydrants are. Yeah, I know the hydrants are there as a conduit of the municipal water supply. I know the municipal water supply is there to serve each residence, each business to be able to get domestic water. But the hydrants are there and they're called fire hydrants for a reason, because the fire department uses them. Usually, again, for that 1% of the call that we get are fires, we got to make sure they work. In many communities, the fire hydrants have a blue dot in the streets. You can see them in the middle of the night, but go back east and you go parts of the country that snow, there probably won't be blue dots. So you better be able to find those fire hydrants. So that's why a lot of departments have their firefighters do hydrant maintenance. Number one, it's like inspections. It gets you not into a building, but fire hydrants, it gets you out there pre-fire planning. You know, again, it's nice to know where your hydrants are. Number two, it gets you out there to see if everything functions. Make sure that the valves work correctly. Can you get water out of it? When you open it up and you get water out of it, is all chunky, gunky, crap rocks. Yeah, if you're not exercising flowing water from hydrants, there's a lot of built up junk inside these things. And again, I'd rather do these in calm situations in the middle of the day than at 2 in the morning when all of a sudden that building's on fire. Remember the building that I didn't do an inspection on, I didn't do the pre-fire planning because we don't want to do inspections. Well, that's one issue. Now we're having trouble finding the fire hydrant because it's overrun by shrubbery and bushes and there's no blue dot. And then we're frantically looking for that closest hydrant. And you're the one that's supposed to get the hydrant because you're the firefighter, because your driver's over here screaming at you, get me water. And then you've got obviously the building burning down. You got your captain running around screaming at you to say, get that darn hydrant, because your engine usually only has 500 gallons of water typically. And that 500 gallons of water is going to go pretty quick if that building's on fire. That's stressful. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. When I had that hydrant as a firefighter going, number one, I can't find it. And then number two, I found it. As I'm opening it up, ain't no water coming off because it was shut down in the street. And I'm like, shit, why was it shut down the street? Well, because there was some construction going on and whoever shut it down forgot to turn it back on. Again, I rather would have figured that out in normal situations than when everyone's watching us. And mind you, this is 20 years ago, and you just had a handful of people watching you and watching their house burn down while I couldn't get the hydrant to get any water out of it. And I had to say, we got to find the next hydrant, 500 feet away, which adds another 10, 20 minutes, give or take. Now imagine today, what's happening now when you're having trouble getting water out of that hydrant? Everyone's filming you on their phone, and it's looking even more embarrassing as they're posting it on YouTube because the firefighters can't get water out of that hydrant. So yeah, we may not own them, but you know what? I want to maintain them at least so we know they work when we need them to work. Think about this last item here, what a firefighter does. 3 words, duties as assigned. You look at every job specification for any position in the fire department, the police department, any governmental agency. Look at the job description. So if there's a position in a city, county, state, whatever, if there's a position that's, I guess, a budgeted position for lack of a better term, like a firefighter, a police officer, a fire captain, battalion chief, fire chief, if there's a position that gets pay and gets benefits, there's also the expectation there's a job specification sheet. And that's usually found now, thanks to the internet, on the city's website. So if you're applying for the city of, say, Spokane, Washington, if you go to their website, specifically the human resources section or the personnel section, cities pretty much in today's world of transparent government are required to not just show the salaries. So they'll show the salaries, they'll show the benefits of every position. They'll also show the job descriptions or the job specifications for each position. If you look for the job description or specification of every position from the top to the very bottom, fire chief to firefighter, you're going to see all these duties they do, most of which I've mentioned. The last item usually in every job description is duties as assigned. And guess what that means? That's the catch-all for everything. Literally, that is the catch-all. So the duties may not say cat in the tree, but again, maybe it's a duty as assigned. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but again, your officer needs to make that choice. But anyway, duties as assigned. So my point is, we wrap this up, is please don't be that person. If you find yourself, please bite your tongue if you ever find yourself saying, that's not my job, or I didn't sign up to do that. And you're going to hear that. Usually you don't hear it from the new firefighters or the new people of any type of work. I mean, new firefighter, new police officer, new librarian. Usually when people are in their probationary period, that probationary period of 6 months to 3 years, whatever it is, as they're learning to do their job, people usually don't say those things. It's usually when they're off probation, they say, well, that's not my job. I didn't sign up to do that. If you find yourself ever in that position, just remember, before your captain or your chief points that out to you, which they will more than likely, go back to that last slide, the last item I shared, duties as assigned, because that covers everything. Because I bet you everything falls. I can't think of anything that doesn't fall into duties as assigned. And so I don't mean to be saying that in a snarky or sarcastic way, but it is true. As long as it's obviously safe, legal, ethical, and so forth. We're not asking you to do illegal, unethical, immoral, inappropriate stuff. Nobody should ever be doing that, obviously. Because obviously the majority of things we do are not saving lives and property, and a lot of the things can be considered very mundane and routine. If you talk to a lot of firefighters, a lot of them will be the first to say, hey, I love being a firefighter because not every day is the same. Everything's different. Every time someone calls 911, it's something slightly different. But then you could also look back, a lot of the times, a lot of things are very routine and mundane. I mean, obviously the bell still goes off, but it can seem that way at times. But here's the thing, don't forget why you signed up in the first place, whether you want to be volunteer, career, big city, small city, rural area, whatever type of department. The reason you took that oath of office and raised your hand was to protect and serve the community. I think that's the thing some people tend to, it's easy to lose sight of that, especially at 3 a.m. when you've gone out to the same call. It's so easy to be able to say, God, third time in 10 hours that we're at this house for this emergency. Ma'am, would you just go to the doctor? Oh, I don't want to go to the hospital. Ma'am, I know it gets frustrating sometimes with what we call frequent flyers. Every community's got them, but remember, they're human beings. They're citizens. They're someone's parent. They're someone's grandparent. They're someone's child, someone's sister, someone's brother, someone's friend, someone's loved one. Treat them with respect, as painful as it can be for you, but they should never be an inconvenience. Because here's the thing, we really should all be proud that we have, proud and honored and fortunate to be in the position to serve others. I mean, not everyone gets to wear that patch, the badge or whatever logo they have, to wear the personal protective equipment or the station uniform. Not every one of us gets the opportunity to do that. A lot want the positions, whether they're volunteer or career, few get to do so. So the customer is never and should never be an inconvenience. I mean, think about that. Without them, there would be no need for us. Again, I know it's very tempting to get very frustrated with some of the calls we go on, which are just like, oh my God, we're going out there again. Please, please. How would you like that if that was your parents' local fire crew, or your spouse, significant other, whoever, family, friend, or whoever loved one that gets that experience from their local department? Don't do that. It's tempting to be that way. Smile on our face. The day you find yourself complaining and whining about having to go for another one of those types of calls, or why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. You know what? Maybe it's time to move on, time to retire, time to promote, time to reevaluate. Go back to that interview, because you think about it. That interview, when you were getting hired, when you were gung-ho, inspired, motivated, ready to save, change the world. Remember how you promised the fire chief and the oral board that you'll do everything to be a firefighter. You'll give 120%, which is impossible. You promised the world, and then all of a sudden now what happens? You're off probation, and sometimes you can get jaded. Again, think back to that interview and always try to live your interview, as they say. So in closing here, I sincerely thank you for the gift of your time. I truly mean that. Hopefully you've been able to gain some nuggets from this episode, as well as the previous episode that are also on my YouTube page and my website. I'm a resource for each and every one of you. My contact information is here. Please connect on social media. I don't have all the answers, but I know what it's like. I was in your shoes at one point wanting to become a firefighter. It took me 4.5 years to get the job. You know what? Best move I've ever made in my career. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifices, but it was definitely worth it. Very rewarding to this day. So I know what it's like. Feel free to reach out if I can ever be of assistance. So until the next episode, be safe, be well, take care, and keep on focusing on being the best candidate you can be. All right. Take care. Have a good day, everybody.